So these people who you see now with bags have just came from Ukraine as refugees, crossing into Poland, and thankfully they're in somewhat of a safer situation now. Obviously it's tragic that they had to leave their lives, their homes, and so many of their family members back in Ukraine. But we see a lot of them now still on the train, and some will go on to Warsaw, and it's a bittersweet moment in many ways. Thankfully they were able to get a train packed as it was, and as long as the journey was some 10 hours from Lviv, 10 hours because so many of the train tracks have been bombed, but they avoided the chance of having to stand out in the cold like so many tens of thousands of others have had to do, and freeze essentially whilst waiting to get into Ukraine. The weather is particularly cold at this time of year, and there's mothers and babies who are standing at the border for some 40 hours, we're told, on average, trying to get through as they're being processed out of Ukraine and into Poland. And so we know this is an emotional time, obviously, when so many have had to say goodbye to their husbands or fathers who have stayed to fight. So if you can do anything to help, please visit lifefunder.com/Ukraine to support refugees just like this who have been displaced, and to help the injured and the bereaved in Ukraine. So that's lifefunder.com/Ukraine. Tim Jackson here with LifeSite News. These are some of the Ukrainians who are arriving into Poland. We're here at the border town of Chelm, and thousands more are expected today at this town alone. Hundreds of thousands have streamed through already into Poland. There's been a huge response from locals. Everyone invests here is helping to welcome these people and make it as comfortable as it can be. Obviously it's a horrible situation, but if you want to help, please go to lifefunder.com/Ukraine to help refugees just like this who have had to leave their homes, leave their families, and also to help the injured and the bereaved. There's been a huge response, like I say, on the ground here from Poland, and hopefully the world can also do its part to try and alleviate some of the suffering that people are going through. The main train has just arrived now in this eastern Poland town of Chelm, a train filled with Ukrainian refugees fleeing the war that has overtaken them. A lot of the people whom you'll see are women and children, and the men have been left back in Ukraine to fight. Some 500,000 Ukrainian refugees have now crossed into Poland and are being processed and sent around the country, and it's quite likely that many other European countries will begin taking them too. Hungary and Slovakia also share a border with the Ukraine and are taking some of the refugees there as well. The Polish response has been remarkable. We've seen it firsthand how many citizens have responded so generously. Companies are sending employees to help here on the ground at this train station. We've met many of them, and people are sending in food and clothing, bedding, and it's just been the most generous response on behalf of the Polish people. The government are also doing their utmost to make sure that the lives of these Ukrainian refugees are made as easy as possible whilst they're in the country. That said, there are huge queues at the border, taking some 40 hours, and for the thousands who are on foot at the border, it's been a hellish time because temperatures here are below 15 degrees Fahrenheit. It's freezing right now, and many thousands are in long queues waiting to be processed between Ukraine and Poland. We'll take you here closer to where people are getting off the train, and you can see there's a sense of how bittersweet this moment is. They've found safety, but they've also had to leave their lives and many of their family members behind.
Ja перепрошую, ви ще на когось чекаєте? Да і я чекаю свою. Я розумію.
This is only the beginning of this is the end of the train. They're unloading from the back to up at the front, and it's a train that we're told is carrying over 2,000 refugees. And this particular small Polish town of Chelm has already had 5 days of refugees arriving. But such is the generosity of the Polish people that they've opened not only their country but also often their own homes to help. If you'd like to help these refugees and hundreds of thousands that will arrive here, and also people within Ukraine, please visit lifefunder.com/Ukraine to help the displaced, the bereaved and the injured. From the Polish side of the Ukrainian border, this is Tim Jackson for LifeSite News. These are just some of the families that are arriving into Poland from Ukraine, forced out of their own country, out of their own homes and from their families. And you can see the innocence in their eyes. But war has overtaken their country, unfortunately. There are thousands of Poles around the country as well who are helping to welcome these refugees, who have provided them with clothes and food and medicine and bedding as well. And the government is working, and lots of charities are also working on providing them with as much accommodation as they can arrange. Many people are now opening their homes and apartments to Ukrainian refugees, 500,000 of which have already arrived in the country. It's been a remarkable response. So these are just the first 2 carriages of a train that contains some 2,000 refugees. And they're making their way to be processed at the centre, where also a lot of food and medicine and care awaits them. If you'd like to help out any of the refugees that will be entering Poland, please visit lifefunder.com/Ukraine, where money has been raised and sent to Caritas in the Ukraine to continue the good work that they're doing. For LifeSite News, this is Tim Jackson. This is the scene as thousands of refugees land in the eastern Poland town of Chelm, having left Ukraine, having left their homes, their lives, and many of their family members. It's a bittersweet moment where there's the relief of reaching safety, but the sadness of saying goodbye, and the unknown that they're entering. Who knows when this war will end? LifeSite News is here to report on the refugee situation and ask you to support the work being done on the ground in Ukraine through lifefunder.com/Ukraine. Some 500,000 refugees have already arrived in Poland, having escaped the war, and many millions more are expected in the coming days as this war drags on, it seems. It's an emotional time for the people arriving, and there are many children and women who are on this train, but not many men. Many of the husbands and fathers and family members are back in Ukraine, having been conscripted to the army, and many haven't volunteered anyway to fight. But for now, this is what Poland is trying to cope with, the influx of some 500,000 people. Poland has been so incredibly generous so far, providing food and accommodation, medical essentials and all sorts of other necessities to people that are at their wits' end. If you'd like to help, please go to lifefunder.com/Ukraine. For LifeSite news on the Polish border with Ukraine, this is Tim Jackson. So these are some of the people we saw getting off the train that just arrived. They're just some of the 2,000 people that will arrive this evening. And they're being processed here as refugees by the Polish volunteers, and some of the army are here and police. And then once they're processed and have given their details, they'll either go to family members who may be taking care of them, or else they'll go to refugee centres around the country. There's a lot of Polish volunteers here, translators, etc., who have volunteered their time, and they are providing food and medical essentials, clothing, bedding, anything that's needed, and everything you can think of for children just like that, as well as everyone else. We've seen a lot of tears today from a lot of the people as they disembark the trains, reaching safety, but there's also a real sense of despair, unfortunately, for those they left behind. Husbands and fathers who have to fight, and many other family that couldn't make the trip. Some of them told us they spent 22 hours on the train from Kiev to be here today, fleeing a city that has been torn apart. So this is Tim Jackson for LifeSite News, and if you'd like to help out, please visit lifefunder.com/Ukraine.